Hello and welcome to my channel, In Search of Wonder. My name is Anne and today I am going to tell you how I built my library that you see behind me for free or very cheap. I am drinking a gingerbread something or other latte from a local coffee shop. It is going to be my last indulgent drink of the season, and then I'm gonna go back to no sugar in my lattes. The last hurrah of the Christmas season for me. So to celebrate the challenge for this month in my Reading the Classics readathon, which is a book buying ban, someone had asked me in the comments in a previous video for my suggestions for finding books cheap or free. And so I thought that this would be a great month to talk about that, since the book buying ban is in many ways prompted by the need to save money. It's prompted by budgetary reasons. It's also, of course, influenced by space reasons and by the simple fact that what is the point of accruing things that you are never going to use? So if you have a lot of books on your shelf that you haven't read yet, what's the point of getting more until you've read some of the ones that you have? So there are a lot of factors that went into the challenge not to buy books throughout the month of January, and to other people who do similar challenges. But I thought that I would look at it from a budgetary angle and talk about how I built the library you see behind me for not exactly free, but a lot of these books I have gotten for free. Definitely very cheap. I can count on one hand the books that I have purchased here at full price, brand new. I just don't do that very often. So I will tell you where I do find books and how you too can build your library even if you don't have a big budget to do that. It's definitely possible. First of all, before I get into the more practical tips, I think that there is some advice that would be helpful for anyone who wants to live a more frugal lifestyle or is forced to live a more frugal lifestyle like I have for the vast majority of my adult life. There are some attributes you may want to embrace when embarking on this lifestyle that would be essential to being successful in your endeavor to live frugally. One is patience, because you may not get the latest, and in fact, I will say, it's really not possible to be able to read all the latest bestsellers when they come out on a limited budget. It's just not possible. So you have to have a little bit of patience. You have to be able to wait for those bestsellers for a little bit of time to pass, and then they will be available at a cheaper price or more readily available, but from the beginning, probably not so much. There also needs to be a little bit of persistence, because some of these resources that I'm going to tell you about where you can find free or cheap books does require checking back frequently to see what the stock is, and also digging through some things that you may not want. Like you may have to, one man's trash is another man's treasure. There may be a lot of books that are trash for you in order for you to find your treasure, the book that is worth it for you. And also there needs to be a little bit of flexibility. You may need to embrace books and genres that you wouldn't have otherwise based on the constraints of your budget. Or for myself, I not only have budget restraints, I have space restraints. What you see behind me, this is the space I have for my books, and I don't have any more space in the house to put any more books. So whatever books I acquire have to fit on these shelves. So that's part of it. So now that we are armed with patience, persistence, and flexibility, let's talk about how we can get books, all the books, for free and cheap. Let's start with free physical books. There is nothing like holding an actual physical book in your hand. And the truth is, I say this is my library. This is my physical library. I also have a Kindle full of just as many books, probably, and probably just as many unread books as well. And yeah, that's part of my library too. But there is just something about holding a physical book in your hands and reading it. That's definitely my preference. And I know many people have the same preference as well. So how can you acquire free books for your library? Now, the first one I'm going to mention is maybe a little bit fudging here because you won't be able to keep these books in your library, and it's also obvious, the local public library. Go to your local public library and check out the books. That's probably the most surefire way of being able to read recently published books within a decent time frame without having to actually outlay money for them. And the advantage is that you can read them, borrow them from the library, and not outlay any money. And then you can decide if you want to purchase it for your library versus outlaying the money for it and then realizing that book wasn't for you, or you didn't really love it, you'll never reread it, you don't want it on your shelf, but now you're out the money that you spent on it, and you definitely won't get that money back that you put into it. So I have to mention the library to start with because it's obvious, but it's a good one to consider if you're wanting to save money on your book buying habit. However, it won't contribute significantly to building your library. I do have a couple tips about using the library that you may want to consider that you may not have heard elsewhere, or you maybe never tried. One is look into your county's system and see if they reciprocate with other systems in your area. My library has this information buried in the facts section on their website. It's not advertised anywhere. A lot of people don't talk about it. So you may not know that your library actually reciprocates with other libraries. And by that, I mean, if, like, for example, the library system of the county where I live in, they reciprocate with, I think, like 5 other counties that are within a half-hour's drive or so from me, half-hour to an hour drive from me. So even though I do not live in those counties, I'm still eligible to get a library card in those counties. Now, am I ever in those counties? Does it make sense for me to go and drive to those libraries and get physical books there? Not necessarily, but it does give me access to their digital libraries. So that's helpful as well, because each county will have a different collection. Just like their physical collection differs and varies, so do their digital collections. So it gives you access to a broader digital library, but also it does give you access to their physical library if you happen to be in the area and you want to check them out. So check out the reciprocal counties and reciprocal library systems that you can take advantage of. Also, along the same lines, if the county where you live has, for lack of a better word, a really crappy library system, check out the qualifications for eligibility in the other counties in your state. It may be that you can get a library card in another county, a larger county or a county with a larger city or something like that, that has a larger collection that you can access, even though you don't live there. Because a lot of them have options for non-residents, as long as you live in the state. So just look into that, look into your state, look into the other library systems in your state. You may have more options than you thought. And finally, I just want to mention there's always the possibility of an interlibrary loan, which is probably the easiest way to access the content and the catalog of libraries. Whatever libraries your library works with. My understanding is, according to my sister, who is a librarian, she said that basically libraries, they're all connected via a network and a database. And so if you put in an interlibrary loan, they can look in this database, they can contact that library, and that book can be shipped to them, and then they lend it to you. So that gives you access to so many different library systems and all kinds of books. So it's worth it. If there's a book you really want to read, but your library doesn't have it, check out the interlibrary loan option and see if you can get it through your library that way. Now, I will point out a couple caveats here. Sometimes there is a fee. It depends on the library that is loaning the book. And you can always say, I don't want to pay that fee, and so then you don't get to borrow the book. And also, the rules about the book lending come from the library that is lending the book, which may be different from your library system. So you may have a shorter window of time to read it. There may be other restrictions, so they will tell you all that when you go to do the interlibrary loan. My library has an interlibrary loan page on their website where you can fill out the form for the book you're looking for, and then they get back to you with the options, and you can decide if you want to borrow that book or not. Another thing is that they don't usually have the most popular books available. They usually wait 6 to 12 months because they want to give their community first dibs at it, which makes perfect sense. So that's something you just have to keep in mind. All right, now that is only the first suggestion, and I've already been talking for 10 minutes, so we are going to try and go pretty briskly through all of these things because I have like 3 pages here of notes to talk to you about. The second one I'm sure you've heard of is Little Free Library. So I think everybody is familiar with Little Free Library and the concept. I'm sure you've seen other booktubers going around to Little Free Libraries in their area. So I'm just gonna give you a couple of tips real quick. Number 1, download the app. Absolutely, 100%. Download the app because wherever you are, if you allow it to use your location, they will tell you what Little Free Libraries are nearby. I actually have a Little Free Library within walking distance of my house, which is fantastic. So you can look up whatever Little Free Libraries are near you and you can go and check them out. All you have to do is bring a book to the Little Free Library and get one. You don't even have to put a book in a Little Free Library. That's kind of best practice, but I mean, it's not a rule. There aren't any Little Free Library police. If you happen to stop by one and you see a book that looks interesting, I don't think anybody's gonna care if you take it and you don't have anything to put back in. But generally speaking, best practice, exchange a book that you no longer want for a book that you get from the Little Free Library. Another thing to consider is when I first started going to Little Free Libraries, I actually didn't know about the app. So I just did a search on Google Maps. And it's actually slightly different from what is in the Little Free Library. Now, the Little Free Library app has way more than are on Google Maps. It has all of the ones that are registered. But on Google Maps, there are some that aren't, for whatever reason, actually part of the Little Free Library network, but they are labeled as Little Free Libraries. And they've been put onto Google Maps, so you can go find those. However, because it's not kept up by an organization like Little Free Library, they may be defunct. So you may be disappointed, but search on Google Maps as well. Also keep in mind that many local coffee shops will often have a book exchange shelf. So always look out for those when you go to any local coffee shops in your area. And other places like that, other local places often have a Little Free Library shelf. It may not be affiliated with Little Free Library, but it's the same concept. It's take a book, leave a book. So I have definitely gotten a decent number, not a huge number, but I've definitely gotten a decent number of books from such book exchanges over the past years. Another website that operates on a similar concept, but it is online, and I used it years ago when my husband and I were newly married and we first had our kids and we were living on one income, and that was a very minimal income, and we had zero budget for anything, let alone books. I participated quite frequently on the Paperback Swap website, and it's still running and it still seems to be maintained. So, but I haven't used it in years myself. I just want to throw it out there in case it's an option for you. It works on the same concept, but you actually have to mail the book. They have where you can print out the postage and everything, so you don't have to actually go to the post office if you don't want to. And they show you how to wrap and package your books to send them inexpensively through the mail. And you list all of the books you have that you are willing to give to someone else and just send them for the cost of media mail shipping. And then once someone gets one of your books, like someone chooses your book, then you have a credit and you can use that to get someone else's book. And so when I used it, it was just like a book for book exchange. It didn't matter what book you sold or gave away, a book for a book. So every time you gave a book, you were able to get a book. So it works on the same concept as a Little Free Library. It's just through this website, and you actually have to send it through the mail. Speaking of libraries, now this again is not a way to acquire books per se, but it isn't a way to read books that you don't have, that you don't want to keep on your shelves personally, or you don't know if you want to keep them on your shelf. Definitely check out BiblioGuide's list of private lending libraries, which is a growing trend of people who are, or small entities and organizations, often nonprofit organizations, who are offering their book collections for the purpose of borrowing. And sometimes they have a fee. Actually, often they have a fee. So do look into that. Make sure, if you're willing to pay the yearly fee or whatever. I don't have any close enough to me to utilize, but I would love for someone to start one in my area. I've toyed with the idea of doing it myself, but it's just not feasible for me right now. And I actually don't have that many physical books that people would be interested in, I don't think, but it's an option to consider. One way that I have gotten several books this year is doing book exchanges or book swaps with friends. So if you aren't aware of any of those happening, organize one yourself. I have an annual Christmas party with a group of friends, and this year we decided to do a book exchange. Almost all of us in the group love to read, and several of us read a lot. We are voracious readers, so we did a book exchange this time, which was so much fun. We each brought a book, and then we each came home with a different book. So organize one if you aren't aware of one. You can also look on Facebook in your community for book swapping events and for book swapping groups that are in your area. And you might find some, you might be surprised. There is, now I have not taken advantage of this, but I do know that there is a local bar in my area where once a month people meet and they have like a silent reading book club where you read your own book, but they also exchange and swap books at those monthly meetings. So maybe your local library hosts a similar event. So look into book swaps in your area. You might be surprised, and you can find some good things there. Now this next tip, it's super obvious, but there we have it. Borrow from your friends and your family. Now again, this won't add to your library. So quite a few of these suggestions, I will admit, are more about getting access to books than necessarily keeping them and building your library, but it does have the advantage of being able to read something without outlaying money, so you can decide if you want to outlay the money or not, and it saves you money in that way. So borrow from friends and family, ask them. So I have two sisters who have decently sized libraries who live in my area, and I always browse through their books when I'm there, and I frequently borrow from them. If they come across a book that they think that I am interested in, they will let me know and they will lend it to me, and vice versa. Another option for picking up books for free is Buy Nothing or Free Cycle. Both of those organizations have websites with local groups, but I find the Facebook groups are more active. On Free Cycle, I used to be on an email group that worked really well. So basically, the way these groups work is you have an item and that you no longer want, but you don't want to go through the hassle of selling it, and you want to donate it, but you'd rather somebody just come and take it off your hands, so you list it. I'm currently in a very active Buy Nothing Facebook group, and I have gotten so many amazing things on there besides books. So it's amazing. It works great. Even if not for your library, it's just great for saving money all around. One man's trash is another man's treasure. But I will say, there are often books on there. I have not personally given or received books on my Buy Nothing Facebook group, but I see books all the time, and I see books on there that are great books, like newer books, or like someone is cleaning out their book of the month collection, or children's books, textbooks, all kinds of books. I have seen a wide variety of books, and many of them are great. I just haven't been interested in getting them for myself, but that is something I'm always looking at. Like, I'm always looking to see, and eventually, I know for sure I will be getting a book from one of those groups. Along the same lines, Facebook Marketplace has, you can search for anything, and you can search for books, and then you can set the price from lowest to high, and people do give away books on Facebook Marketplace, and they just want them out of their hair. They're done with them. They're cleaning out their collection, and they just want to get rid of them. And so you can find some treasures. You can find some great books there. I mean, older ones, classic ones, vintage, more recent ones, all kinds. I've seen all kinds. This tip is a little bit less definite, I guess. This one definitely will require some patience and persistence. But giveaways, I have won quite a few books on giveaways, so that is one way I've acquired some of these. And sometimes when you enter a giveaway, you'll get like a signed copy, and you might get extra goodies from the author as well. So that's a lot of fun, a little bit of added value there. So I always find my giveaways on Goodreads. They always have a giveaway section. Storygraph has a giveaway section. And so I periodically just flip through those and see what they have available to give away. And I sign up. I don't win most of the time, but when I do win, it's fun and exciting, and it has added to my collection. Also, follow your favorite authors. And this is like mandatory. Follow your favorite authors and your favorite publishers on all their social media platforms that you are active on, and sign up for their newsletters, because then you will be notified when they have deals, but also you will be notified when they have giveaways, and they do on a fairly regular basis. They will offer giveaways. Some authors have monthly giveaways in their newsletters, and so you can enter their giveaways on a regular basis. And because that's a smaller pool, then because it's only that author's fans and the people who are subscribed to their newsletter or who are paying attention to their social media page, it's a smaller pool, so you have a higher likelihood of winning those giveaways. Additionally, follow book influencers, which obviously you're already doing, so this is kind of no-brainer, right? But follow book influencers on YouTube, on Instagram. If you're on TikTok, I'm not, but I know that that happens a lot there as well. Follow on whatever social media platform you're on, because there are constantly giveaways. I am regularly entering giveaways on Instagram, and so it's another way for you to build your collection. And again, depending on who the influencer is and how large of a following they have, your odds might improve significantly entering those giveaways. Hooey, I am only halfway through the information that I have to share for you today. So hopefully already I've given you some good tips for how to expand your library, or at least to expand your reading experience. So I talked about free physical books, but let's not underestimate the value of free digital and audiobooks, or free ebooks and audiobooks. When I was newly married with small children, living on one income and had zero money, that was when I really got in. Like, Kindle was pretty new at that point, and I really got into it because even though I didn't love the experience of reading a digital book, I was able to get my hands on so many more books for free or super cheap that I just couldn't pass up that opportunity. Otherwise, I would not have had access to the books that I was able to. And because of that, it required a little bit of less flexibility and patience from me, because there were more books available to me digitally than there were physically. So I definitely hopped on the Kindle train pretty early, and it was a huge blessing to me. And so I still have a ton of books on my Kindle, and I still use it pretty regularly for reading. So first of all, there is someone who regularly keeps track of the Christian book, or books that might be of interest to Christians. They're not all Christian books, but they're like clean and Christian and nonfiction and that kind of thing. And she operates a storefront on Amazon, and I will link to it in the description box below. It's called Book Deals for Christian Readers. And everything from free to like cheap and sales, she posts on there. So she's already done the work of combing through what is free on Amazon, because there's a lot. There are a lot of Kindle books that are free, and you can just scroll through it. Now, I will say sometimes they are permanently free. Like, these are like teaser books by authors so that you can get hooked on them and try it out, so then you will read their other books. Some of them are like the first in a series, so then you read that, and then they'll make you pay for the next books in the series. And then some of them, the vast majority of them, are from indie authors, which might be a bit of a risk. You may love the books, you may hate the books, they may not be worth your time, but at least you haven't outlaid a lot of money for them. I definitely have taken advantage of quite a few of the books in that listing, and I have found gems. So periodically I just go and scroll through and see what's there, see what's available, and I usually come away with 1 or 2 books. Another thing is, this is technically not free, but if you are a member of Amazon Prime, they also have Prime Reading, which I don't hear as many people talk about. A lot of people talk about Kindle Unlimited, which is a separate subscription fee every month. But if you already pay for Amazon Prime, then you have access to their Amazon Prime reading library, which is nothing to sneeze at. They have all kinds of classics on there to start with. And they have nonfiction, they have fiction, they have all genres. A lot of times, instead of having like the latest, greatest book that's not often available. I mean, sometimes they have like a handful of selections of recently published books that, you know, are being highlighted for one reason or other. Most of the time they're not of interest to me, but that doesn't mean that they're not great books that people would love to read. But a lot of times it's an author's backlist that they're trying to find new readers, especially when they publish a new book, or just before they publish a new book. They want to get people interested in their backlist, so they will buy a new book. And the stock kind of rotates. The classics are there pretty perennially, and some other books are there perennially, but it does rotate, so it's not always the same thing. So if you're on Amazon Prime, it's worth checking it out. I periodically go on there. Now, you are not actually keeping these books, but once you download it, you can have it indefinitely on your Kindle as long as you want. Some of them I've had on my Kindle for years, but there's a limit. I think it's 10 that you can have at one time. So then if you find more that you want, you have to exchange one and get another one. Another option is BookBub, which I think most people know about, but it's where I have gotten, I would say, 90% of my Kindle books. Now, a lot of times they send ones that are cheap, not necessarily free, but they do send free ones as well. So you just create an account on BookBub and you check off the genres that you're interested in. It's been a long time since I've done it, but I think you can check if you want like free or cheap or like a price point you're willing to pay, and then they will send you emails. I think you can set up the intervals that you want the emails. I get them daily, and it's actually one of the highlights of my day to look through that email and see what kind of ebooks I can get for cheap or free. And again, giveaways, because sometimes the giveaways that I mentioned earlier are for physical books and sometimes they are for digital books. You have a higher chance of winning the digital ones because they usually have more copies available in the digital ones. So it's always worth it to enter a digital giveaway as well as a physical giveaway. Another thing to keep your eye out for is Stuff Your Kindle Day. Now, this won't be to everyone's taste. It started with romance books. And so that kind of spread into a wide variety of categories. And it started with 1 day a year, and now it's 4 different days a year. I will link to the website in the description box. January 28th, I think, is the next one. So it's Stuff Your Kindle Day, and it's a lot of independent authors, but there are also some established and well-known authors on there as well. I have found some great books in Stuff Your Kindle Day. And then there is a cozy mystery one as well, and that will be, I think, January 25th or something like that. So keep your eyes peeled for those. If either of those genres are of interest to you, you can check them out and find some free Kindle books. And also Project Gutenberg. If you love to read classics like I do, Project Gutenberg is an excellent way to build your digital library and fill it with classics, especially if you're not sure you're going to love the classic, or if it is a hard to find classic, like you're not able to find a physical copy of it, which happens a lot, especially with more obscure authors and books. So check out Project Gutenberg for sure. You can read it directly on their website online, and they have options for downloading it in a variety of digital formats. I always download it so I can read it on my Kindle. Standard eBooks is another one that I discovered recently, which is very similar to Project Gutenberg, but they pride themselves in being very careful with the formatting, with the editing, with the transcribing, and all together they try to make it an enjoyable reading experience. They try to make it as high quality as possible so that you don't have typing errors or spelling errors or formatting errors like can happen with a Project Gutenberg book. So they don't have as large of a library, but it's always growing, and you can count on much higher quality than you would with Project Gutenberg. So it's worth checking first to see if they have the book you're interested in before going to Project Gutenberg as kind of, a last resort. Also, again, this doesn't necessarily build your library, but it saves you money because it gives you an opportunity to check out a book and see if you want to buy it. Hoopla and Libby. Those are both apps that you can use through your library. So check and see if your library system uses one or the other. Mine uses both. So and there are advantages and disadvantages to both of them. The Libby works directly with Kindle, so it's a lot easier to read through your Kindle app or through your Kindle. Hoopla only works on Kindle Fire, and then there's like a workaround. It's kind of a pain, but in the end, I am also able to read not through my Kindle, but on my Kindle Fire. I love Hoopla and I love Libby. Most of the ebooks and audiobooks that I borrow from the library, they come through there. It's a great way to get access to newer books, especially Hoopla, than getting a physical one. For audiobooks, LibriVox, a lot of people know about it, is similar to Project Gutenberg in that volunteers read the books. So the quality, again, is not always up to snuff, and you may not enjoy it, but try it at least, especially if you like audiobooks. YouTube is another one. Some authors will read their books on YouTube as a way to generate interest in their work, especially indie authors and lesser known authors. And other people have read classics or children's books that are available on YouTube as well. So it's a great way to also get access to some free audiobooks as well. Now, this next category is neither free nor cheap. It's kind of in between. You don't have to exchange any cash if you don't want to, but you do have to exchange books. But it works different from a book swap situation in that each book that you turn in is assigned a particular amount of value, which is usually less than the amount required to get a new book. So instead of like a book for book swap, you may have to turn in 10 books in exchange for one book that you really want. But it can be a great deal if you have unhauled a bunch of books and there are particular ones that you're looking for or ones that are of interest to you, you can exchange the ones you're unhauling and you can get the book that you actually want. And depending on the collection at your bookstore or, you know, wherever you're shopping, you could end up getting a recently published book or a newer author or a more difficult to find book, depending on what's available. So first of all, I love to shop local, so find your local used bookstore. Most of them have a store credit program where you can bring the books that you no longer want. If they want them, if they want to add them to their collection, they will pay you a small amount for those books, and then you can use that for store credit to then in turn purchase books at their store. We have a couple chains in the area. McKay is actually the one that's in our area is not affiliated with the McKays that are in further south than us. So I guess it's just independent bookstore. We can bring all of our books and they will pay us a certain amount for the ones that they want to resell. And then we can turn around and use that as store credit. And I always bring probably about a box worth of books when I go. Otherwise it's not worth the drive for me. But I bring about a box worth of books and I'm able to get 5, 6 to 10 books myself that I'm interested in off of that box of books. And the box contains probably, I don't know, 25 to 30 books, I guess. So it's a pretty decent exchange, and I'm able to get books I really want and get rid of the books that I don't anymore without actually outlaying any money, any cash. Second and Charles is another one, similar. Now, both of those, in my experience, can be a little bit picky because they already have a large collection. They're a little bit picky about the books that they will take and the books that they will actually give money for. And so will other smaller used bookstores. So you may not be able to offload all of your books to them depending on how they operate. I did find a used bookstore. So you may have to hunt around. You may have to, broaden your search to 30 minutes away from you. About 30 minutes away from me, there is a bookstore that they promise they will take your whole box of books. Now, you may only get pennies on the dollar for some of them, but they will take your whole box of books and they will pay you for it. And then in turn, you can use, now they will only pay you in store credit. I don't think they give any cash. So you can use that store credit at their store and turn around and buy books. And they have a huge collection. I could browse for days and not see everything there is to see in their store. So you're guaranteed to find something that you would want there. So look around and see what kind of local bookstores are in your area and what kind of programs they have for exchanging books. And definitely 100%, that is maybe one of the most significant ways that I have built my library here is by trading in at used bookstores. Online, there are a couple of options that I have personally used and I recommend to you. Pango Books, I have both sold and bought, and I love how it works. So it's basically all individual sellers, unlike a lot of the other websites where you can buy used books. It is individual sellers who are sending out the books. They're listing them and they're sending them from their homes usually. I'm guessing maybe some independent bookstores are on there as well. Unlike, say, Thrift Books, which is an overall organization that is sending the books to you from their warehouse or wherever the books are located. So I like that because it is supporting other readers like myself or perhaps resellers like my sister who has a Pango shop. So you can really find some good deals because they're just trying to unload their books. On the flip side, that means that if you are a reseller, you may not be able to get as much money as you should be able to from your books. But what I also love about Pango Books is then you get credit at Pango Books that you can use to buy books from other sellers. So I always put my books first on Pango Books. And then if they're on Pango Books for several months and there's no interest in them, then I take them to McKay or another used bookstore locally. So I sell them and then I use the store credit. I'm sure you could get a cash payout, but I always use it in store credit and I turn around and I buy other books on Pango that I'm interested in. So that's another way, like I've gotten quite a few books this past year from Pango Books. Thrift Books has just recently, within the past year, started their buyback program, and I'm very interested in trying it. It looks super simple. You scan the ISBN number of your books on their app, and they tell you how much they will give you for it, and then they will print out the shipping label for you, and so then you box it up and send it to them, and once they have received it, they will give you either store credit or a deposit into PayPal or whatever. That seems pretty convenient and a fantastic way to exchange. So I am considering doing that at some point. I just haven't yet. So it's something to consider. So finally, let's talk about ways to get books inexpensively. Now, let's be honest, most of the books you see behind me were not free to me. I did outlay some money for them, but not a lot. Like I said, only a handful of these have I personally myself purchased at full price, brand new. Most of these I have gotten very inexpensively, definitely less than $10. Most of them less than $5. I have not paid too much more than that for any of the books that you see behind me. But again, this is going to take patience and persistence and flexibility. You do not know what is going to be out there most of the time when you're going hunting for these book treasures. So you get what you get, right? First of all, library sales. Now, most libraries have an ongoing smaller selection of books for very cheap. I have never seen them higher than like $3. I'm sure some libraries do, some library systems do, but in my lifetime, I've never seen any of those little ongoing library sales for higher than $3. So you can get a great selection of books for super cheap. Some of them are brand new, some of them are used. You never know what you're gonna get. You have to be persistent and look at it on a regular basis, and you have to be flexible with what you are interested in purchasing, because it may not be something you were looking for, but you might come across something that interests you. In fact, I guarantee you will come across things that will interest you, and very inexpensively. So they always have ongoing sales, but they also usually have annual or biannual events where they pull out all the books that they have, and not just a rotating stock, but they pull out all of the books that they have available for resale, and then you can go and buy them. And they're largely going to be used, but there will be some new. They will all be in pretty good condition most of the time. Some of them might be library discards, but they're not always library discards. Very often they're just books that were donated to the library and they're just selling them, because that's usually what libraries do. Rather than putting donated books into their collection, they sell them and use the money to support the library. So you can find all kinds of books. I have definitely found so many books at library sales. It's one of my favorite ways to acquire books. Thrift stores. Again, patience and persistence is required for this. Both for books and for clothes. So a lot of the clothes that I wear are also thrifted, and people ask me all the time, how do you find these things? Like, I go to a thrift store and I don't see anything. Well, yes, honey, if you go one time to the thrift store, probably you might find one thing. You have to go regularly. Patience and persistence. You have to go, I probably at least once a month visit at least 2, probably more like 3 of the local thrift stores. And there's 4. There are 4 thrift stores that I could walk to. The one I have never walked to, it would be a long walk. But there are 3 that are an easy walking distance from my house. 3. So I go to each of them probably once a month-ish, maybe not quite that often. And I just see what they have. And I always walk out with books, always. Anytime at a thrift store, beeline for the book section, and I almost always come away with something. 50 cents, $1. Some of the more expensive thrift stores want you to pay $3, $4, $5. Some of them will individually price the books, which is ridiculous, and I prefer not to do that, but you can find great deals at thrift stores. So that is where I get a lot of books. Used bookstores. So you can pay cash, you can exchange and not outlay any cash, but you can also find some great deals inexpensively for books. So I do occasionally actually spend cash at used bookstores. Not very often, but I do. Pango, I have spent actual cash on Pango and not just credit. It's a great place. Like I said, it's usually people like you and me who are just unhauling and hauling books. They're not necessarily book collectors who are looking for the actual value of the book per se. So you can find some really good deals on Pango books. It's probably, I look there first. If there is a book that I want to buy, I look on Pango books first to see if they have it. Thrift books, I used to buy from a lot, but they have gradually increased their prices to the point where it's not always the best deal. And also they don't have as large a selection, I don't think, as they used to, because I have a harder time finding used books on their site. Usually when I search something, it ends up being a new book and then I have to pay full price for it. I'm not interested in that. Maybe a slightly discounted price, but still not like a used book price. So I've not found as much on thrift books recently, but they do have different tiers of membership programs where you can earn free books. So I've gotten free books from them by purchasing books, and they do have like quantity deals, like if you buy so much then you get free shipping, or you buy 4 and you get the 5th book free, or something like that. So it's still worth it. I always check there, but I have found myself buying less and less on there as the years have gone by. Abe Books is one also that you can find some good deals, used books online. eBay is great if you are looking for particular books, but keep in mind that a lot of people on eBay are professional resellers, so they are looking for the actual value of the book. So it has to be something that you actually want to pay the value of the book. You're not just looking for a great deal. You can get a great deal. You can get a fantastic deal, but it may not be as cheap as you could find it somewhere else. Chloe recently did a video a similar video where she talked about how she acquires her books in her library, and she mentioned Second Sale, which I had never heard of before, so I have not ordered from them yet, but I am going to, because they remind me of what thrift books used to be like 3 or 4 years ago. So I'm gonna check them out. The prices seem more like along the lines of what I was finding on thrift books a couple of years back. And I don't know, I'm interested in trying them out. So I will let you know how that goes, but just wanted to mention that. Book Outlet is another one. I recently made an order for the first time on Book Outlet, and you can find some great deals. Not like super cheap used book deals, but for new books, it's really good prices. Then they have deals and they have offers and whatever. So definitely check out Book Outlet. It's worth trying. It's worth shopping there. Another one I want to mention is Baker Bookhouse. When I have bought books that are new, I have bought them from Baker Bookhouse. Not all of them, but I have bought books from Baker Bookhouse brand new. They have great deals on pre-orders. Plus, if you're pre-ordering from an author, a lot of times if you are one of the first, certain number depending on how many items they have, if you are one of the first, let's say 50 or 100 or 500 people to pre-order, then you get some goodies from the author. Once those run out, then they're not available anymore with the pre-orders. So if you were later to the pre-order game, you won't get those, but the price is still cheap and it's free shipping. So if I'm gonna pre-order something, I pre-order through Baker Bookhouse for sure. So another one I always like to look at is Christian book distributors. I like to shop their sales and clearance, and I have gotten stacks of books for very low prices, especially when they run sales and clearance events. I found some really good deals on there on Christian books. And finally, I want to mention, as far as physical books go, Facebook Marketplace, which I use a lot for like household goods and that sort of thing, but they also have a lot of books, and people will sell their books locally on Facebook Marketplace. I see a lot of like book of the month books. I see a lot of recent bestsellers on there, usually $3, $4, and $5 each, typically, is what they're asking. So if you are looking for some more recent books, I would look there. If you're not finding it for the deal that you want on Book Outlet or on Thrift Books or any of those other sites or at your local used bookstore, check out Facebook Marketplace and see if someone locally is just selling their books, and you may be able to find it. And then if it's local, then you just need to go pick it up from their front porch, and it's really easy. And finally, I want to mention some sources for cheap digital and audiobooks to build your digital collection. BookBub, I already mentioned for free books, but you can also get great deals. Like I said, I check the emails from BookBub every day. They also tell you, so when you follow certain authors on BookBub, so you can follow authors that you're interested in, they will tell you when those authors' books go on sale or for free, and they will tell you when those authors' recommended books go on sale. So that's really fantastic. I have gotten some great books by checking off the authors that I like and following them and getting their books cheap or free, and their recommendations also. Also, Amazon Kindle sends me emails, and I scoured their website and I could not find where you can sign up for the emails. So maybe just if you have a Kindle, Amazon will send you regular daily emails as far as cheap and free books. So I have gotten a lot from there also. Also because of their, their logarithms or whatever, like they kind of track what you like and what you're interested in. So a lot of times the books that they send you are books similar to what you've already read, and so they're tailored to your interest, and so they're actually books that you might be interested in buying. Every time I get an email from BookBub or Amazon Kindle with cheap and free deals on digital books, every time I see books that I would get if I had an endless budget. Again, I said this already, but it helps you getting book deals as well. Follow the authors on their social media, sign up for their newsletters, and they will tell you when their books go on sale. And that is a great way to find out about the deals. Also, publishers. There are also, like BookBub, there are a couple, well, there are multiple genre-specific or category-specific book deal services that will notify you of deals on books or new books. So Faith Books is one of them. A lot of times these are independently published books, but not always. They're not always of interest to me personally, because I don't like to waste my time on books I'm not actually interested in. So a lot of times I won't read indie authors unless they come highly recommended to me. I mean, I would love to support indie authors, but I only have so much time and so much money. So I wait until someone has recommended them to me, no matter how interesting it sounds, typically. You would get recommended books from them, and usually independently published authors, but not always. Notification of new releases, etc. Another one that I signed up for recently, and I don't love as much, but also has a lot of independently published books and lesser known authors, and that is Bargain Booksy. It's a little more spammy in my opinion, so bit of a caveat, but cheap and free books. I'm talking $1, $2, $3. And it's not as reliable as like BookBub, but I have come across some interesting reads from there as well. These other ones are worth mentioning. Chirp for audiobooks. I much prefer Chirp to Audible. I have never had an Audible account because it just seems complicated. Plus, I have not been willing to outlay the subscription fee for a service that I'm not going to use very much, because I don't love audiobooks and I don't have a lot of time to devote to listening to audio. Any time I have for listening, I'm pretty much using on my BookTube channel, friends. So I very rarely listen to audiobooks, but I have listened to audiobooks, and I do want to do more of that and just kind of like expand that repertoire a little bit. And Chirp is definitely the way to go. I have purchased books from Chirp for other people. One thing I love about it is that it is super easy to do that. I can give that easily as gifts to other people who do read audiobooks, and it's fantastic. To me, it is way more user-friendly than Amazon Audible and a lot cheaper. So you can get individual books for sale prices. I think they have a tab on their website, less than $5 or something like that, and tons of high quality, fantastic audiobooks for very inexpensive. And it's rotating. It's not always the same things. So I do recommend Chirp above Audible if you were looking for a resource for audiobooks. Also, if you happen to have Spotify Premium, you get up to 15 hours free on audiobooks. So it's not worth it, I don't think, if you don't already have a Spotify account. We have a Spotify family premium account. It's $20 a month, and every single one of us has an account on there. And I think each of us can listen to up to 15 hours audio. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I think so. Anyway, we're already paying that amount of money because I use it for work all the time. My part of it, which is it's $10 for the first one, I think. That much is actually tax deductible for me because I mostly use my music aspect of it for work. But you can also use it for audiobooks as well. And then also worth mentioning here is Kindle Unlimited, because it can be worth it for you. It's $12 a month currently in the United States, and it's unlimited like it says. However, it is unlimited within the catalog that they have. So it's not any and all books. It's only the books that authors have put in Kindle Unlimited. So in my estimation, for the amount of money that I typically pay for a digital book, I figure that I should read probably 2 or 3 books from Kindle Unlimited a month to make it worth it for me. And it's not usually that much worth it for me. The only reason I want to use Kindle Unlimited right now is because for me, right now, that is the best way for me to access the Emma M. Lyons series, which I'm really wanting to finish. So I am strongly considering getting it for a month or 2 until I finish those books that are in the series. So I'm considering that, but other than that, I've determined it's not worth it for me because the books I can get on Kindle Unlimited, many of them I'm able to access otherwise through the library, and most of them are not books that I necessarily want to keep. So there's that. So this has been a very long video. It was longer even than I expected. So hopefully it's not been too long for you. Hopefully it was helpful information. When I was asked about this topic, I wasn't sure that it would be a valuable video for anyone because I feel like a lot of these suggestions everybody already knows about. So hopefully there were some useful tips for you. I will have all of the links in the description box below, and you can dig around on those websites and find more information about them and see what you can find as far as free and cheap books. Let me know in the comments if there are any additional resources that you would recommend, and also if you have any thoughts to add about the resources that I mentioned for other people who are watching this video, if you've had good or bad experiences with any of the entities that I suggested. I'm sure other viewers would be very interested in your recommendations or your warnings. If you have warnings about any of these, chat away in the comments and let me know your thoughts. And thank you so much for watching, and here's to building your home library and reading all the books without breaking your budget, and I will see you next time. Bye!